What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to try a few different forge finishes and we'll take a look at the results. Alright, so I've been meaning to do this for a while, and then somebody asked on one of my earlier videos if I would actually put a video together talking about the finish that I use for my stuff. And what I do is just do like a baked on oil finish, which I haven't seen anybody else do. I've covered it in a couple other videos, a little bit here and there, but nothing really super in detail. So I figured I'd go into detail on the finish I like to do for mine, but then get into some of the others. So before we do that, if you want to go check my Etsy store or grab a t-shirt or something, I've got all the links down in the description below. Go check out Way of Knife. Some of my knives are up for sale there. But let's get into this, because a lot of different smiths are putting out videos about the finish they like. And what I see is people getting that tunnel vision. I found something I like, this is what I'm doing, and this is the right way to do it. And they come on and they show you, hey, this is how you put a finish on, and they're all a little different. And so I figured I'd try some of theirs, I'd try some that I've heard about and read about, and I'll show you mine. And I'll do some pictures afterwards, and we'll see if we can compare a little bit to see which ones, you know, it's all subjective, so not what I like best, but, you know, take a look at what they are, and you can decide which one you like best. So this is my forge finish here. This is just a little puppy dog bottle opener, and it's just a black baked on oil finish, and we'll see what some of the other finishes look like as we go. Okay, so what I've got here is, I don't know, it's probably ½ inch by ½ inch or something like that, and I marked it off in 2-inch sections and punched some little numbers in it. I've got 7, 8, 9 of them, so we could do 9 different finishes. I don't know if I've got that many in my head, but we'll go until I run out. So let me cut these into sections, and we'll try some different ways of finishing it. So one of the finishes that I see done a little bit is just a forge scale finish and then putting some linseed oil on it. Now this is piece number 1, and I will heat it up in the forge. What I'm going to do consistently on all the pieces is heat them up on the forge till they develop forge scale for me, not just the mill scale. And then I'll wire brush it with my butcher block brush, and from there we'll start doing the different techniques. So this one I will heat up till it's you know, forging temperatures, maybe hit it a couple of times with the hammer just to put some forge marks in it, and then brush it, let it cool off, and we'll put some linseed oil on it. Okay, so this is going to be the same on all of them we do. Make sure I'm not hitting the side that I have marked. So just going to forge it down for a minute, just so that we get some, you know, get some forge marks in it. And then the butcher block brush. And we will call this the control. And I'm just going to let this one cool, and we'll put the linseed oil finish on it. So we'll call this one our control. This is piece number 1, forge scale finish, and we're just going to put a little linseed oil on it. A lot of linseed oil on it, and we'll call that our control. We'll let that dry and get on to some of the other ones. Piece number 2, the finish I like to do, I start off by doing just a real light. This is just, you know, a real soft wire wheel that I do on my drill press. It looks like it's brass, but it's really not. Alright, so I was really confusing myself there as I was going along. I remembered what number 1 was, I remembered what number 2 was. The rest of them were like going through my head like, hey, so I went on my phone and I made the list of what I'm doing. So number 1, linseed oil only. Number 2, I wire brushed it. Oh, I'm sorry, the sunlight's getting in the way. Number 2, I wire brushed it on my drill press, that light wire brush, and I'm going to bake. I'm going to dip it in canola oil and then bake it over the forge. Number 3, I brushed it. I'm going to dip it and just let it sit. I'm going to heat it up till it's nice and hot, dip it, and we'll just let it bake on from the residual heat from the piece and see if that blackens the oil coating enough. Number 4 is that just brushed, and then I'm going to rub it with an oil-coated rag after I heat it up. And number 5, rubbed and baked. So I'm going to rub it, I'm going to heat it up. No, I'm going to rub it with the oil-coated rag and then bake it over the forge like I do with the dipping. That's my second most favorite. And then 6 through 9 are going to be the same, but I'm not going to wire brush them on that wheel. You're not going to see much difference. I don't even know if you'll see any difference in the pictures, but I figured I'd do it. What I'm using is just canola oil, the same stuff that I quench my knives in. You can use, I've found that anything works. You can do linseed oil. Linseed oil is a little flammable. It likes to burn off real quick. But any vegetable oil, you can use beeswax. I used to do that beeswax, linseed oil, turpentine thing, but I never found, I mean, just the regular vegetable oil was doing fine. On anything that's going to be used for food, any of the silverware, anything like that, spoons and whatnot, I will use olive oil, just because, I don't know, I like using olive oil, and it sounds better when I tell people I use olive oil on the utensils, food grade stuff. So that's where we're going to go. Number 1's done with the linseed oil. That's sitting now. So I'm going to go ahead and do number 2. So what I'm going to do is heat it up until it's reddish, really light orange, and then I'm going to dip it in the canola oil that I use to quench my knives. So now it's covered with oil, so now I'm just going to bake it over the forge, and the key to this is not letting it get too hot. So all I'm going to do is just hold it over the forge, and as it starts to heat up, you'll see it want to start smoking, and that's when I know that I've got to pull it out. So hopefully it's showing up on camera, but it's smoking now. Which means if I went any hotter, it would actually ignite. It would burst into flames. So I'm going to let that cool down just a hair, and then put it back over the flames for just a second until it starts smoking again. And as you go, you can start seeing it turn brown as you go. So, it's turning brown a little bit in some areas. We'll put it back in the fire. Starts to smoke again. It's a little darker brown, and I'm just going to keep going until it's a nice, dark, rich black that I like. Now you can, if you put more, you dip it again, the black will get, a little richer. I don't think you personally need to. I almost never do, but you can if you want just a little bit of a darker, richer black. I'm not sure it does anything to add to protection or not. I've never had any problem with the protection aspect of it, so I've never really experimented all that much. Okay, so that's the good side. That's the side I brushed. Hopefully it's coming through on the camera. And that is where I would call it. That's where I would leave it when I was doing it. If you heat it up too much, you're going to burn the oil off. You're going to create forge scale, which will defeat everything you've just done, and you'll have to start over. I mean, it's really just controlling the temperature and making sure it stays at the same heat as if you were seasoning a cast iron pan. So this is number 3 here, and this one was wire brushed on the drill press. And now I'm just going to heat it up till it's a nice kind of cherry red, and then I'm going to dunk it in the oil, and I'm just going to let the residual heat from the piece bake the finish on. Hopefully it's coming through. It's a nice cherry red. Dunk it. Make sure it cools off enough so that the oil just doesn't burn off right away. It's staying on there. And I'm just going to set this one aside, not do anything else, and we'll see how well it bakes on from there. Okay? Okay, so for number 4, excuse me. Number 4, hopefully you can tell, it's a nice cherry, and I've got an oil-soaked rag, so it's nice and hot. And all I'm going to do is brush the oil on there while it's cooling down, and we'll see how it goes. This is all I'm doing is taking this oil rag. This is probably still just a tad hot, because it's burning off the oil pretty quick, but so this one, I heated it up in my forge, but I mean, you could heat it up with a torch. All you got to do is get it hot enough to bake the oil on. This one, it's not working too bad. You can see the line there between where I'm actually rubbing it and where the tongs are holding it, and it is baking on pretty good. This one's not doing too bad. Okay, so I'm just going to heat it up just a tad, just so the oil flows nice and evenly on it, and then I'm going to start heating it up real slow. Same thing as the first one. When it starts smoking, I'm going to pull it out, except on this one, rather than just letting the smoke cool, I'm going to reapply some oil from the rag. For number 6, I'm doing the exact same thing as number 2. That's the dip it in the oil and then bake it on over the forge. The only difference is I didn't take this one to the drill press with that brush on it. You could use an angle grinder with a wire brush, or a bench grinder with a wire brush, and achieve the same effect, I think. But this one just isn't brushed, and I actually don't know if there will be much of a difference. But let's try it and find out. Okay, so this is number 7. I lost a couple of the punches when I drew it out, a tad, but this one is going to be, I brushed it at the anvil, but I didn't take it to the wire brush on the drill or the angle grinder, and now I'm going to heat it up to cherry red and then dip it in the oil, and we'll just let it bake on from there. Okay, so this is number 8, and this one I'm going to heat up in the forge. Turn the fire a little bit here. Almost done. I need just a little more heat. Don't go out yet. So I'm going to heat it up in the forge until it's a nice cherry, and then I'm going to take my rag soaked in oil, and I'm just going to color it, wipe it with the oil. So number 9 is the last one, and this is the one I'm going to just wipe the oil on while it's cold, and then bake it on over the forge. But I didn't take this one to the drill press, so it's just a forge scale finish, brushed at the anvil, and that's it. Whew, I'm inside warming up now. So anyways, I'm going to take some pictures here, and I'm going to do it, I'm going to take one just as the finish is now, And then I'm going to put some lemon oil on it. I can't remember the brand of this. It's just lemon oil. You can find it in any, I think any grocery store, any home store, big box store, whatever. I find the lemon oil really makes the finish pop just a little bit more, especially when I'm at the shows. I'll go over and I just constantly have a rag covered in lemon oil, and I'm constantly wiping the pieces and putting just a little sheen on them. So I will take a picture of it without the lemon oil, just as it sits now, put the lemon oil on it, take another picture, and then we'll review the results and see what we got. Okay, so I thought I would just kind of give my opinion of what I notice on these, and I'll show some close-ups. I don't know how well the pictures are going to come out, just because of the way I have my photo booth set up. It doesn't always get all the highlights and the contrast. So this is number one. This is just the linseed oil finish on the forge scale finish, and it came out better than I thought it would. I really expected just kind of plain and blah. It is kind of plain and blah, but I mean it really is kind of a nice industrial look. So let's get a close-up of that. And then here it is with the linseed oil finish on it. Alright, this is number two. This is the finish that I would normally do, wire brushed, either on the drill press or angle grinder or whatever, and then dipped in the oil and then baked on over the forge. Let's get a close-up of that. And then with the linseed oil, hopefully it shows on the camera that it really, the linseed oil makes it pop. Alright, this is number three. This is the one that was wire brushed. I heated it up till it was cherry red. Actually, it was a dull orange, and then I dipped it in the oil and I just let the residual heat bake the finish on. I don't know if it's coming through on the camera. I had to wipe the excess oil off because it all didn't bake on, and I mean it really not much baked on at all. It's sort of a hodgepodge between brown and black, and there's some that I think it just burned off on all the way. It's kind of a temper blue color, so it's interesting, but I don't think it's really well protected. But here's a close-up. And then with the linseed oil. So my fear without looking at the pictures yet as I'm making the video is that all the pictures look exactly the same. So we'll see. Anyways, this one is number 4. This is the one that was heated up and then just an oiled rag rubbed on it as it cooled down. Much the same as the dipped one. It's just a little splotchy. It's better. It's not quite as splotchy. But it also could have used a little more time in the heat. But here's a close-up of number 4. And then with the linseed oil. Number 5 was brushed with the wire brush, and then I rubbed it with the oily rag as I was baking it over the forge. Again, this is my second favorite way to do it. It's a nice, pretty consistent, even black. And yeah, it's my second favorite way to do it. It takes just a hair longer than the other way I do it, but it does get a pretty nice finish. So let's do a close-up. And then with the lemon oil. Okay, this is number 6. This is not wire brushed. I mean wire brushed at the anvil, but not on the drill or angle grinder or anything. And then it's baked on the way I like to do it. You can tell that it wasn't wire brushed. I mean, it's not as sharp of an image. It's definitely the black finish is definitely even, but you can tell. I mean, it's rougher. It doesn't look as finished as the wire brushed one. So let's do a close up of this one. And then with the lemon oil. And this is number 7. This one is not wire brushed and heated up till it was cherry-ish and then dipped in the oil. This particular one, there's a little white splotch on it, which I think was just some coal ash or something that got stuck to it. So the oil didn't bake on as well. I had to wipe the excess oil off on this one again. But this one, without being wire brushed, maybe it's just the heat on it, maybe it was the way I dipped it, I don't know. This one baked on a little bit better than the one that was wire brushed. It may just be a coincidence. It may just be the residual heat that I had built up in it. Hard to say, but yeah, this is my least favorite way to do it. Close up with the lemon oil. Alright, this is number 8, which was not wire brushed. Heated up and then rubbed with the oily rag. And again, you can tell that it wasn't wire brushed. I mean, it's just rougher. To each his own, whether you like it or not. And the finish on this one, again, you know, it's not horrible. I would do it in a pinch if I had to. But it just, I mean, it could have used just a few more minutes, you know, a few more seconds of heat to bake that on, I think, to get it a little more consistent. But not horrible. Close-up time. And then with the lemon oil. And then this is number 9. This is not wire brushed. And then rubbed with the oily rag as I was baking it over the forge. Much like the last one I did. You know, it's my second favorite way to finish it, but you can tell that it wasn't wire brushed. It's just not as smooth as the wire brushed one. But again, this would do in a pinch. So let's get a close-up of that. And with the lemon oil. So there we go. Nothing has changed. Again, this is just me doing it, so it might not be as good as how other people are describing it, how they do their technique. I was just trying to take what I've seen. But, you know, for me, nothing has changed in my opinion. Number 2, wire brushed, and then baked on it. You know, dip it in the oil and then baked on over the forge. I like the way that finish looks, and if you bake it on and then dip it again, I mean, it really makes for a nice. It gets rid of any issues whatsoever, like doing a double coat of it. So I don't know. I don't think anything's going to change my mind, but maybe you see something on here that you like better, and you know, maybe it'll help you out. So whoever asked, I forgot your name. I'm sorry. I'm lousy with names. I think I've mentioned that before. But there's your video on how to do the different finishes. So hopefully it helped. And if you have any questions, if you want to, you know what, I'm going to put pictures of these. I will take all these pictures, these close-ups that I took, and I will put them on my Facebook page, which you can find a link to. I don't know if I have a link in the description, but definitely on like my homepage on YouTube, there's a little Facebook icon, and you can click that and go. Or you can just look up HOJ Forge on Facebook, or Racing Jason is the name I go by on the radio, and that's my Facebook page. So a lot of you are friending me, finding me that way, which is fine. I'll friend anybody. But HOJ Forge on Facebook is where I will put the pictures up, so you can look at them maybe in a little more detail than what's going on the video. So anyways, thanks guys, and I will talk to you later. Let me know if you have any questions. See ya.